Welcome to episode 154 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Watches, Medals, and Champs edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. I'm your host, Philip Matthew, and I'm here with my co-host. We got to go back to it. It's bad juju, I think. We didn't do it last week. That might have been part of it. Got to go find it here. Part of what makes the GSP the GSP. Here we go. Yeah, he's a computer genius, an iRacing Indy 500 champion, a gentleman and a scholar. He also attended the Rolex 24 this weekend and is part of the crew that's trying to get me through the fact that the 49ers lost their quarterback and then lost the plot yesterday. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Sorry to hear about the 49ers. I mean, I was watching that game and, they didn't really have a chance after Brock Purdy got hurt, but at least you guys were able to get to the championship game like that. But unfortunately, you have to lose like that again this year. But it happens, and hopefully you get back next year. But for me, good weekend again. Going to the Rolex 24 again this year. Went last year. Now attended second time, but had a great time there. And you said I'm iRacing Indy 500 champion, and I was within feet of Elio Castroneves pre-race. I managed to make it right up to the 60 car, as he was talking on his pre-race interview and on the radio, and I was trying to get a picture with him, but he just walked away right before I could get up to him. So I was within feet of an actual Indy 500 champion, and could have been a powerful combo right there. Indy 500 champion and the iRacing Indy 500 winners. So great weekend overall at the Rolex, and on the football side, with the way the 49ers turn out and the Bengals. So best of both, or you have both sides of the street there. So ready to talk about it though.
Yeah, we both. I think we picked what the majority would have wanted to see, but the NFL wanted the Kelsey Bowl / Kermit the Frog to get his coronation, which in 2 weeks he'll get the MVP at Honors, and then a couple of days, 2-3 days later, he'll have a chance to win his second Super Bowl of his career. After it'll be his third Super Bowl in 4 years. It's his third Super Bowl in 4 years. In theory, he has had a chance. He's been in the AFC Championship game every year of his career. This is 5 years. This is his fifth year in the league. He's made 3 Super Bowls. The other 2 years, he went to the AFC Championship game and lost. So it's a pretty crazy start to a career for Patrick Mahomes. And he'll get a second MVP, and we'll see what he can do. Philadelphia Eagles were able to go and take advantage of the Niners there and put them out of their misery early. Put me out of my misery. I mean, even though I did have to spend way more money at the V than I should have, I was able to leave there basically around halftime or a little after halftime because I'd already given up. They'll say, "Oh, you're not a real fan." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm intelligent. I'm realistic." We're down 21-7 because we had a dishwasher at quarterback and he couldn't handle a fucking snap. All right, I'm getting into my tangent. We have to get into the preview. We're going to go through all the football discussion of the Kelsey Bowl, coaching GM news. If it matters, I don't think it really does. I think I'm going to take a couple weeks off, 2-3 weeks off from football at this point. I think there's only 2 weeks left of football. I think I can avoid it. Josh went to the Rolex. It was a great race. The Meyer-Shank Racing Acura team gets the victory, 2 consecutive victories in the Rolex 24. Honda and Acura have had an amazing run at the Rolex in recent years, so it's nice to see that if you are an Acura fan or Honda fan. The Cadillacs, the Ganassi Cadillacs, were strong. So we'll get into all that and all the other winners, that all 5 classes and the winners. I mean, more like 4 classes because the LMP3 category was a waste of time. GTP reliability was a big deal during the Rolex. We'll get into that as well. There is NASCAR news. All 3 major series. We're going to get into the One Piece later on. And because we're getting close to Daytona a few weeks away, of course, for NASCAR. The roundup is very short and sweet. The Race of Champions, which took place in Sweden, got to catch a little bit of the actual Race of Champions itself, the driver head-to-head battle amongst all the drivers. The team event I missed on Saturday. And then Saudi Pre doubleheader in Diriyah for Formula E. We'll preview the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum and make some picks. Maybe bring out the algorithm out of the dust since we need it for Daytona. So maybe we'll see if there's a way to figure out how to eliminate 9 people from the field scientifically. Just an idea, just a thought for later on. Josh will do his sim segment, tell us all things going on in the world of iRacing in the gaming world, and we'll close the deal. So we'll first start NFL. The Lamar Hunt Trophy stays in the house that Lamar Hunt built, and now it's Kermit the Frog's factory, and Patrick Mahomes wins and gets to his 3rd Super Bowl in the last 4 years. Cincinnati was getting a little too cocky in some ways, but I also think Cincinnati was in that game. There's really only been Cincinnati in recent years that has given Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs problems. But what ended up happening was the jig was up with their offensive line, and there's an irony to that both teams that lost yesterday had serious offensive line issues. Of course, Burrow's offensive line has basically been terrible for the majority of his career, and he gets hit more than it's got a read of Andrew Luck. He had a read of where he had a John Elway, Jim Kelly arc going, and it's entirely possible he could have that kind of arc still. But what the arc he has now is he has the Andrew Luck arc, but he's actually gone to a Super Bowl because he just gets murdered way too much because his offensive line sucks. And Cincinnati's cheap, and he's up for an extension. So, if he had made the Super Bowl, I'm sure it would have cost him maybe a couple more million a year, but they miss out on that deal. Patrick Mahomes was not amazing, but in the end, he did Patrick Mahomes things, and he was able to go and get in there, do what he had to do to win, and I didn't need to see that just there. So that's what it is. I basically wasn't really, after the first game, I don't think I was really all that invested, but I did catch the end of the game, and I think probably I should have just left it alone because they'd got back into the game. The Bengals, they were behind early, and then it got away, or then they got back into it. They were down 13-6 at half. It was 20-13 after 3 quarters, and then the Bengals were able to score. You had Brother Knight Harrison Butker gets that field goal. That's the only points of the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, Harrison Butker gets another field goal, chip shot, Evan McPherson to make it 6-3. And then Patrick Mahomes, of course, those to Travis Kelce. Picked by Joe Burrow, but they were able to force a 3-and-out. Then they get a field goal to make it 13-6. In the second half, Burrow gets that touchdown to T. Higgins, but Mahomes responds to MVS and puts themselves back up 20-13 there. It was 13-6, then it was 13-13 actually then. 20-13, and then Kansas City and Mahomes, after a punt, Mahomes fumbles. Burrow goes and hands off to P. Ryan for a touchdown. The punt, the interception, that one of the turnovers, that second turnover was a backbreaker really, and they had to punt again after that, and that basically was some bad penalties, terrible officiating, which isn't shocking. That was across the board yesterday too. The aside penalty aside, no pun intended. That's going to get called 10 times out of 10, and especially against Kermit the Frog. But that game was not officiated well. The game before wasn't officiated well, and people are not going to really think about it because the game got out of hand early, Josh. But in this case, at the end of the day, Kansas City did what they had to do. Joe Burrow probably didn't have the best game that he needed to have. And you can't you can't turn the ball over twice and not really. And Jamar Chase he had 75 yards on 6 receptions, but on 8 targets. But Higgins was the guy yesterday. They lost Tyler Boyd early in the game, and I think that played a role. They weren't really using Hayden Hurst as much as they probably could have. The running game was non-existent.
Both sides, really.
Yeah, but Kansas City isn't really known, to be honest. They're not known for their run as much as they want to talk about their two-headed monster at running back. They're not known for running the damn ball. I just looked through the Hubbard and Hendrickson were quiet, and the interior line had their issues. Asai actually had a great game. Everyone's going to say the late hit, but he made a pick, 5 total tackles, 3 tackles and 2 assists, and a pick and a pass deflection. Or no, he had a pass deflection. So he was in this game. He showed up to play. It's very emotional at the end. It's unfortunate. You can't blame him. They'll blame him, but really it wasn't him. In the grand scheme of things, Burrow threw for 270 and 1 touchdown, but he turned the ball over twice. He turned the ball over against a team like the Chiefs. You're not gonna win. Both Kelsey and Mahomes fumbled yesterday, but Mahomes fumbled it and lost it. And so, there was a 5th down. It became a 5th down because of the officials, which was bad. There's other stuff, but yeah, at the end of the day, Kansas City won, and they're going to the Super Bowl. It's what the NFL did want. So another Super Bowl for Patrick Mahomes there, Josh.
Yeah, I hate to see it really. Especially after the previous week, Jacksonville losing to Kansas City. I was really wanting to see them lose after that and want them to, go to the Super Bowl. But Kansas City, ekes out a win once again. Mahomes, wasn't that great in that game, to be honest. He obviously is hampered by the injury and everything. But Kansas City and Cincinnati, their offensive lines both didn't really do that great of a job. And both of them were really under duress throughout different parts of the game. And for Burrow, he got pretty good in the second half and led them, tied the game and everything. The touchdown to T. Higgins in the third quarter, that was a pretty good score there. And then they were able to tie it at 20, and they had a chance. With the minute left, they could have driven down the field. And I didn't really like some of the play calls that they had at the end. They had 2 deep shots, on there, and the second deep shot was the one that got picked. And I don't really like when he goes to the same route, the same time, or two plays in a row, and it makes it really predictable there. And you probably could have gone to a different type of play there with the second one and avoided the pick. But the pick happened, and then defensively they gave it up with the penalty there. But then also on special teams, on the punt, there was a hold around the 45-yard line, or a block in the back actually, by one of the Chief players on the Bengals, and that was not called. The refs missed that one, of course. So the refs wanted to be able to get the Chiefs into the Super Bowl, I guess. People will talk about, the NFL is rigged, and seems like, in recent weeks, with the NFL, there's been a lot of NFL is rigged topics on Twitter. It's been trending for a bit. And by the way, NFL and most sports entities are legally classified as sports entertainment. So there might be some truth to that, if it is rigged or not, but maybe not like the outright like the WWE, but something, where there's some level of manipulation there. But that's besides the point, though. But in this game, Kansas City, they just did enough as a team to be able to go out and win the game and go to the Super Bowl, unfortunately. And they're back, and they go against the Eagles, Andy Reid's former team. Obviously, we already talked about that game with the San Francisco and Philadelphia, but it's going to be interesting to see how Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes go up against each other. You have 2 different styles of offense on both sides, and it should be an interesting game. And you have the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which, I mean, they've been pretty good throughout the year as well. So we'll see how well they can hold up against Patrick Mahomes, and if they can put him into situations just like how we saw against Cincinnati this past game, and how they were able to affect him with some of his plays there. So we'll have to see how it is in the Super Bowl. And one interesting fact is that this Super Bowl is basically going to be the Super Bowl of Jacksonville quarterback past, because Gardner Minshew is the backup quarterback for the Eagles, obviously Jaguars starter. And by the way, his first ever NFL appearance was against the season opener against the Chiefs back in 2019, and had a magnificent debut in that game. And now he's going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't know if he'll play or not, but he'll be in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. So kind of goes back full circle and everything there for Minshew, and the legend of his mustache and all that stuff. So there's that. And then of course on the other end you have Chad Henne, the backup quarterback and starter in Jacksonville from 2012 through 2017. So there's that factor too. So it's very interesting storylines there too. So I guess I'm going to pull for the Eagles. Just tired of the Chiefs winning and everything. And of course the Eagles fans are obnoxious. They're a bunch of jabronis and all that stuff. I mean, they might be the jabroniest of the jabronis, I don't know, but they certainly are wacky and everything. But I guess I'll pull for the Minshew factor. I've still got my Minshew t-shirt from the DTWD Originals guys in my closet, so I'll wear that one on Super Bowl Sunday and pull for that. So I reluctantly will be doing that, but I mean, Chiefs, Eagles, probably the least exciting matchup out of all of them, just because I think both teams, you didn't want to see them make it to the Super Bowl. Rather would have seen the Cincinnati Bengals and the 49ers, but it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take it away from Kermit the Frog. They somehow or another are able to get the number one seed every year. That home field advantage does make a difference. You get an advantageous divisional matchup after you go and get a week off, then you're basically really playing for the championship game. And they've been able to hold off they held off Cincinnati in this spot. Last year they didn't. They lost to Brady, of course, that first year. I'm trying to remember who they beat the other 2 years. I'm forgetting off the top, but really it doesn't matter. So, I mean, they've been at home. He's made the championship every year of his career and all that, so guess he's pretty good. We'll have to deal with 2 weeks of his stupid wife and doofus of a brother on social media, and then his dad going and riding the coattails of his son. That'll always be great too. So that'll be insufferable. On top with the obnoxiousness and stupidity of Philly fans. Which the irony is I've never, and I guess we'll get into it that way with a segue. In terms of the Philadelphia Eagles franchise, I don't really have any issues with them. There's plenty of people who hate them, of course, in this area because of the Giants fandom or being a Cowgirls fan or general Redskin Commander fan or some shit. I don't hate them. They were part of one of the greatest days of my life because I was able to watch them beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl and watch a Philadelphia Eagles fan puke, pass out, come to actually see the Eagles win, see Big Dick Nick earn his nickname, get his statue and all that crap, statue left, all those things. Doug Peterson getting that Super Bowl for Philadelphia, first championships in football since 1960. So that was 57 years. So that was a big deal. Nick Sirianni, on the other hand, is a weirdo. He might be an idiot savant, I guess. He's a really good football guy. I mean, heck, he had his kids on the days for his press conference, and his daughter was going off and doing like Rebecca LaRue stuff, and then he had to tell her to stop, and then she kept on going, and then the other two kids started going and doing gimmicks. So you gotta love kids in that sense, but I guess the weirdness is a family trait. Anytime he talks, it just seems like it's convoluted. He's like the Benji Bronk of NFL coaches. But the son of a bitch is going to the Super Bowl. So I hope Ty Schmidt gets himself ready because he's going to be busy for the next 2 weeks doing his impression of Nick Sirianni for sure. The Eagles team, you got to give them credit. They came determined. They were ready. Their fan base was ready to do whatever they were going to do to any fan that decided that was idiotic enough to wear 49ers gear there. It's not great. Honestly, it fits the narrative. But from what I read on some people on the socials for 49ers fans, and they wasn't great. I'm like, well, on the one hand, I'm not surprised based on just history and in general. But then also, no shit, Sherlock, you're really playing with fire here. You're playing with a general fan base that is willing to yell at women at Wing Bowl to show their tits. You're talking about people who boo Santa Claus, people who go and they have a court and jail in the freaking stadium, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. I mean, we do deal with NASCAR here on this show, and that's the lowest common denominator, I think, in terms of sports in general. Philly fans are in that mix for lowest common denominator, mainly because I guess they like to consume a lot of alcohol and get really stupid. But a lot of them seem to hold jobs. So there it is. I'm not going to go there because that would bring up another thing that's really fucked up that happened this last few days. But long story short, the Eagles were the better team. They didn't really have to play yesterday, to be honest. I think they really played about a quarter, and that's it. They really didn't have to do much. Once Hassan Reddick got turnstiled by Mike McGlinchey and Tyler Kroft, who proved once again why he's a backup tight end. And why Mike McGlinchey shouldn't have a job blocking anything. That son of a bitch all year. You just go back all year. They ran that play to Trey week 2, the stupid gun run crap that Shanahan wanted to do. And he ran to the right side and got rolled up under Mike McGlinchey. The Jimmy Garoppolo play, there is one aspect that he should have just given up and died on it, which I don't understand. It's like the one thing I don't get is Peyton Manning and Eli Manning knew how to dive and just get the hell out of the way. Even Brett Favre, when he gave up the sack to Michael Strahan, that inbred retard. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That inbred dipshit who goes and sends his junk out to everybody and then does illegal stuff with money from, well, it is Mississippi. I mean, to be fair, does it really matter? It's Mississippi. But he goes and takes a dive. How come most of these quarterbacks don't know, like when you know you're getting sacked, just get the hell out of the way. Just fall. It's over. You're trying to keep it alive like you're Superman or you're Spider-Pig. It's over, man. But not Jimmy Garoppolo. He's trying to impress all the women that he has, all the Facebook page, all these people that are obsessed with him on 49ers. And there's women that cover sports, that work at betting shows that are marks for Jimmy Garoppolo. That's okay. Yeah.
Jimmy pulls the ladies. He's got a pull.
He can't throw a ball 15 yards accurately. So it's like pass 15 yards accurately. So what the hell does it matter when you're a quarterback? Oh, he smiles. He has a great smile. Then put him on the goddamn Bachelor. He's a free agent. Go and call whoever the hell the idiot is, a non-starter, Jesse Palmer, and say, hey, I want to be on the Bachelor. Be on the Bachelor, bro. Go on one of those stupid dating shows. Go and do the stupid Travis Kelce gimmick that he did and failed at. Don't act like you're a quarterback. But the fact is he went and was running around like a dope against, I think it was Miami or whoever it was, and then got rolled up, and then he got injured, and that was the end of him. And then we had BDB in Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, that became Mr. Relevant. And from then on, at least until yesterday, was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And the offense looked totally different. In a lot of ways, it reminded me of the 2016 Atlanta Falcons offense. The way it was run, the execution, going to Brandon Ayuk, going and getting those deep passes and going and also utilizing everybody on the field, getting George Kittle back in the game, getting Debo to go and play the two-way game that he's able to play along with Christian McCaffrey. offense in Kyle Shanahan's entire existence as a head coach of the 49ers has never looked better. Defense is the best defense in the NFL. And the reality of the world is they only gave up, I think, 200-something yards of offense yesterday in a game where they didn't even have a quarter. They ended up not having a quarterback. They only gave up a couple hundred yards of offense. And but what ends up happening, Hassan Reddick gets turnstiled by McGlinchey and Croft. He runs and nails Brock Purdy in the arm. He has a UCL tear. He tried to throw. It wasn't really pretty. And in the grand scheme of things, he threw for like 24 yards. But considering Josh Johnson couldn't, I wouldn't trust, oh, God, that SOB. He came in the game and he looked like a complete waste of time. They could have called any Tom, Dick, or Jane from the stands, and they would have been more prepared than Josh Johnson seemed to be. Guy's been in the league 15 years. You're just going to be that much deer in the headlights? Like, I get they're a tough pass rush. I get it. Like, the reality is the offensive line, that's the worst this offensive line has played all year. Or, you know what? I'll take that back. The last time their offensive line played this bad was the last time they lost. The last time the Niners lost until yesterday was against Kermit the Frog and the Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe there's something to be said about that. The last two teams they lost to are the two teams that are in the Super Bowl. And before that, you can't really say that any outside of the Atlanta game where they were just smoked. And that was like Marcus Mariota going back to Oregon, Heisman Trophy days, where they were really like, it wasn't like they should have won that game or they were in the game, but they lost, like the Chicago game, which was horrible with Trey, and then that Denver debacle on Sunday Night Football where Jimmy Garoppolo ran out of the end zone. And that essentially was the difference. And so Brock gets hurt. Josh Johnson comes in, looks clueless. CMC does his thing to go and get the one touchdown. It was a 7-7 game. And, and they had the Niners were able to force a 3-and-out after the Purdy fumble. But the Niners then had a punt. So in the end, the first quarter was only 7-7. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Eagles fans want to go and say they dominated. The scoreboard says they did. The reality of the world is, wasn't that amazing? They had a pretty hard time doing their main part of their game, which is passing, and having that whole dynamic with Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith, that's bullshit too, that they called. They were short. Then they went for it on fourth down. They throw the ball. He drops the ball. There's nobody in corporate in New York City. There's not a replay official anywhere in that goddamn stadium throwing the frickin' button to say we need to review this. That's convenient. The way the Eagles were basically were like going and on every play and just almost like going and jumping on people like it's WWE. That seemed a bit interesting too, and they didn't bother to call it. I forget what that idiot's name is. There was a refereeing, but Hussey, yeah, Hussey's like middle of the road. So I'm not surprised. But they say these are all-star crews. How can you have all-star crews when the majority of them couldn't wipe their own ass? How can they be all-stars? What are they all-stars at? Shitting themselves? That's what they're all-stars at.
The all-star crews, they're bad. Yeah, they're bad. Every time they have an all-star crew, guarantee it's going to be a badly called game.
Just go, I don't understand what the point of it is. Go and give them a bonus. The best or what you grade them out to be, give them a bonus. Let them have their teams, the lead official, have their teams go and call these games. You pick and choose however. And then after all the playoff games are done, you reassess along with the regular season and pick whoever was that best crew and send them to the Super Bowl. Simple. Makes too much sense. That's why nobody will do it. So they give up. So in the second quarter, McCaffrey gets that huge touchdown to make it 7-7. Then there was the Eagles were able to drive 67 yards on 20 plays and get that touchdown 14-7. No problem. Basically, right at that point, they had a minute. It was like a minute and a half left. You basically try to run this clock out, go to halftime down 14-7, still a game. Josh Johnson shouldn't be allowed to be anywhere near football. He shouldn't have hands to hold a football. I'm going into the whole Jay Farrow, Stephen A. Smith thing about Chris Bosh. I'm not going to do it because it's better. He does the job and it's hilarious. Watch that on YouTube. You go and watch him. Whatever he said about Chris Bosh is what fits Josh Johnson. He is god awful. I hope this is the end of him ever being in an NFL game. This is the last time you ever see him in the NFL. He has got a great career playing in the USFL or the XFL. Might set the world on fire, go to the Arena League, whatever. Just never come up on a football field, and especially on any football field in a Niners uniform ever again. Get the hell out of here. His play was abominable. Not even be able to catch a snap. It's like, oh, you're being hard on him. The guy's just come into the game, whatever. I'm like, for fuck's sake, you've played quarterback for 25 years. You played in the NFL for 15 years. You know how to catch a goddamn ball? Like, really? And that literally was it. When he fumbled that ball and they got that in the red zone and they scored that touchdown, I knew the game was over. At least at 14-7, there was a sliver of hope. There was a sliver. Because the Eagles weren't doing jack crap, really. They got 2 turnovers. They killed a quarterback, which was basically where they won the game anyway. It was 14-7. They had 1 decent drive. And they got there was a bogus call early in the game. It says 13 for 66 yards, but the point is they missed a couple of calls on that drive. So you'll say, okay, they had 2 really great drives and they ran the ball well. Well, that's what it is. DeMeco Ryans is 1 foot out the door because he's about to be the Houston Texans coach. So he wasn't focused on a game plan. And it's obvious because they had nothing. They had no answer for the Eagles' run game. Like the Eagles' run game is so amazing. They made Kenneth Gainwell look like freaking, what's his name, Brian Westbrook yesterday. They made Miles Sanders look like he was Charlie Garner or some shit, or insert Eagle running back of the past. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you can got one of them drunk jackasses out of the stands, and he could have went out there and ran on the Niners defense. Nick Bosa, who may get the Defensive Player of the Year, more than likely will, but we'll see, was non-existent this whole playoff. And he's your best defensive player. That's a problem. I mean, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw definitely showed up, but I'm not so sure about yesterday. I have to go through the stats, actually, of this game. I mean, and as a team, the Eagles only had 269 total yards. They want to crow about having 269 total yards. They basically they had the same average yards per play. They had the 148 rushing, which I think that's the one big piece. If we're really going to get into it, it's that and the penalties. Oh, there you go. San Francisco had 11 penalties. They started the game early. Hussey was calling penalties on the Eagles. And then after that, I think every penalty they called was on San Francisco the rest of the game. Convenient. But the Eagles were able to run the ball. They were not efficient on third down. They killed Purdy, and that's what had happened. The Niners gave them the game, really. I mean, 2 fumbles that led to 2 fumbles. One of them led to a touchdown. And then they had, they punted to the 9, and then they had a long drive. They had the turnover on downs, a field goal, another fumble. It didn't matter at that point. They had 3 fumbles. They only converted 1 into a score. But it just gets back to the point. Murdering Purdy was the difference, really. The offensive line, I was having a conversation with a couple of people, but then also Cam Inman of the San Jose Mercury News went and said, like, the one takeaway he had from the game is, like, they didn't have any understanding of how to go and block a great pass rush. And this is after they played Micah Parsons last week. But to be fair, you look at the 2 other guys that are in that Defensive Player of the Year deal. Chris Jones had a great game against the 49ers weeks ago, the last time they had lost. Parsons was in the game. They were able to kind of manage him, but he had a presence. In the grand scheme of things, between Reddick and Cox and this guy, that guy, whatever, nothing. McCaffrey tried. They didn't have a backup running back because Elijah Mitchell gets hurt again, of course, and that was a problem. They didn't have a third quarterback because Jimmy Garoppolo was ruled out, so that was a problem. They just didn't have it yesterday. And I'm angry that, you get this far 2 years in a row and it's like a play here or there that basically determined. I mean, Jimmy Ward proving once again why he's a safety because he can't catch. He dropped a pick six from Jalen Hurts. And last year he dropped the ball that would have locked the game up for the Niners to get him to the Super Bowl. Now he's a free agent. He can go. Mike McGlinchey is a free agent. He can jump off the freaking Golden Gate Bridge. Literally one of the worst offensive. Like, it's funny that the Philadelphia Eagles probably have the best right tackle in the NFL, and the Niners have one of the worst. And they used the number one draft pick on him, used a top 10 draft pick on him. It kind of feeds into my hatred of Notre Dame football. And then because usually whenever the Niners have Notre Dame players, they suck. And he's yet another example of it. Though he'll probably get paid like $20 million by somebody, but he can go and play in like Indianapolis or wherever the hell, playing some irrelevant place, the Raiders or something like that. Solomon Thomas went there and is irrelevant there too, but go there or might go to Houston, something like that. He can go too. The Eagles had plenty going for him. They knocked out Purdy, the run game. They had no game plan for the run game. They had no game plan for the pass rush. That's it. I went off pretty good there, Josh. I don't know if you have anything to add on that game.
I mean, there's really not much to add. I mean,
you're muted. You have no sound.
There's really not much. Do you hear me?
Still no sound.
Pretty sure I have sound. Oh my god. Can you hear me now? No sound? Can you hear me now? No sound? Testing. Can you hear me now? No? Yeah, so for the 49ers game, I mean, you already talked a lot about it with the Eagles and how they were able to dominate the 49ers and how the 49ers made a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors, especially by the right tackle. But, I mean, for me, like, you know, as soon as Brock Purdy got hurt, you know, I knew it was over right there. And, I mean, well, not immediately, but, like, when he said he couldn't go and he couldn't have any feeling in his in his right hand or anything like that, and had a hard time handling the ball after the injury, and was like, well, it's over now. And Josh Johnson somehow has been able to hang around in the league since like 2009 or 2010, whatever. I don't know when his first season was, but I remember he was on the Bucs.
They said he's been around 15 years, so that means he's been around since like 2009.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember he was on the 49ers. He was on the Buccaneers like in 2009 when they started out like 0-8 or whatever. But there's that. I remember he was on the Redskins for a bit, and you know, he bounced around the league a bunch. But yeah, I guess if there's one thing to criticize about the 49ers and their roster construction, is backup quarterback. I mean, obviously, the beginning of the year, you know, you're probably fine with Purdy and, you know, Garoppolo and Trey Lance. But, you know, after that, you know, you have Josh Johnson backing up Brock Purdy. It's probably not your best option there. I mean, I have no idea what the backup quarterback market was at the time that they had to pick up Josh Johnson, you know, after the Garoppolo injury and everything. But just a situation that could have been better. I guess, you know, it's hard to rely on a guy like that, especially in the championship game. Although, you know, in general, I think it's pretty tough to have to rely on the backup QB in the championship game to, you know, get you there. And, you know, for a little bit, you know, they were in it 7-0 in the first quarter, and then they tied it up. But, you know, it was always going to be an uphill battle after that. And then, of course, once he fumbled and turned it over right before halftime, that was pretty much it after that. And then from there, it was just the 49ers trying to keep the ship from sinking, and the hole just slowly got bigger, and, you know, until it could no longer hold itself afloat, and began to sink in the fourth quarter. And of course, Trent Williams throwing down on the Eagles defender, and both of them get ejected. And I mean, I don't know what you can say about that, but I mean, I was like, well, it's about to become you know, boxing match here or a wrestling match. And of course, I called it. I was telling my friends, I told you yesterday, the game, I think you could probably call it the body bag game, because Brock Purdy got hurt, and then later on Johnson himself got a concussion slammed to the turf and everything. And,
Yeah, when Ndamukong Suh drove him through the turf and then landed on top of him, which is usually a penalty depending on other quarterbacks, but nothing happened there.
Yeah, and that's part of it and everything. And then they were talking about putting in McCaffrey in as the emergency backup, which is interesting because
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, well,
and I have plenty of people who agreed. Him and Juszczyk, who's been a emergency quarterback over the years for the Niners. I'd rather those two guys together. They're two smart MFers, and both of them have a functional arm. I think they can handle a snap, a direct snap. So my idea was, let's run the wing T. Let's bring it back old school. I mean, let's see what the Philadelphia Eagles can do when they don't even know what the hell the Niners are doing.
Yeah,
but I think they were dominating the line so much. I guess it wouldn't have mattered. But I mean, that's the idea. I was saying to the TV, I'm yelling at the TV. I'm like, I don't want Josh Johnson out there, but I'd rather have Christian McCaffrey have the ball, hold the ball every single damn play, and let him make the decision. I trust him way more than fucking Josh Johnson.
Right. And I mean, well, what I was going to say is that, I mean, you have McCaffrey as the potential backup or emergency backup, but then also Jawan Jennings. I mean, he was a 4-star recruit out of high school, and he was ranked higher than Joe Burrow coming out of high school. He was one of the top 5 quarterbacks coming out in his class. And
interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I saw that one yesterday. So, I mean, obviously, maybe it would have been tough to ask him to be the QB in the middle of the game like that. But, I mean, the preparation beforehand, if you have a former high school QB on the roster that's now a wide receiver, I guess if the situation calls for it, he could have been there, especially if, he was considered, one of the top in his recruiting class, like I just said. So, just a unfortunate situation like we talked about. And, fortunately the 49ers couldn't, really didn't have any chance. And, the other part of it is how does this game change with, the play calling and stuff, especially with the beginning of the game, the catch, to Devontae Smith that should have been challenged by Kyle Shanahan, or at least have the booth review it. The booth, of course, didn't review that one, and that one stood. That was 4th and 3, and if that gets called correctly incomplete, then 49ers start around midfield on their first offensive drive. So with that, I mean, could have been a little bit different in terms of the situational play calling, where the injury happened and down in distance versus starting off with half the field, and changes what you want to call on offense, of course, and gives you more flexibility since you're already at midfield. And if you don't get that possession, then you can always put them down inside the 10-yard line and then make them have to drive down the field against your number 1 ranked defense. So that's certainly something to think about there. And of course, the other end of that is the with the officials reviewing that is the punt that hit the TV wire or the Skycam wire or whatever, and changed the trajectory on the punt, and then the officials spent like 5 or 10 minutes of real time trying to determine where the ball went and where the correct spot of the ball was and all that. And I think they were trying to use like as many angles as they could to figure out how that would have been placed. But then on the flip side of that is how come they couldn't get the call correctly for that 4th and 3 pass that was called complete on the field. But of course, Devontae Smith did not actually come down with possession of that ball at the end of the play. So that's a lot of inconsistency there. Almost kind of like NASCAR with the consistently inconsistent calls. It's been like that the whole year with the NFL, and really going back to the last couple of years. And really speaks to the quality of the officials. It seems to not improve, and there's been several games the last 5 or 6 years that could have been a lot better. With the officiating, and speaks to volumes that they haven't been able to improve it. And even with the so-called all-star crew that they bring out for these big games, it always leads to something suspect. They always advertise, like I remember the Chiefs and LA Rams Monday night game that both teams scored 50 points. I'm pretty sure I remember they were hyping up that they were going to bring out an all-star crew of officials for that game. There was a lot of interesting calls in that one. I remember that, but really kind of shows how bad the officiating is. And another point, what exactly is an all-star crew? Because technically speaking, by the book, the officials should be getting the calls correct, every time. That's their job. I don't really know how one official can be better than the other when, objectively speaking, they both have the same job. And it's all objective and subjective, I guess, but it is what it is. And now we get to see Eagles go to the Super Bowl. It's whatever. Interestingly enough, last time Jacksonville was in the playoffs and were significant contender in that one. The Eagles were also in it, and then they also advanced to the Super Bowl. So interesting correlation there. We'll see what happens and everything. And I guess, for other people and, cultural aspect of it, of course, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace and everything, but, he saw the Eagles win their first Super Bowl back in 2017. So maybe they'll win it again. Kobe can see it from heaven and everything. So that's another aspect, I guess, if you're a basketball guy or whatever, but really stretching there, but something to think about, I guess. But just a really lopsided game overall, and it's pretty much over after the first quarter.
Yeah, it was. And I'm searching here. I'm just out of curiosity now because I'm going down a rabbit hole of 2015 recruits, seeing some interesting names. 3 stars go really far down because I'm looking at pro style quarterbacks and I still haven't found freaking Joe Burrow. I've never, some of these guys I think might be playing in the XFL. We're down to 2 stars. So there's no way that he'd be there. Josh Rosen on 24/7 Sports was ranked the top pro style quarterback. Drew Lock was 5th. Then Brett Rippon was 11th. Kyle Shermer 13th. Trying to see who else is there. David Sills the 5th. Lovely. Kendall Hinton from the Denver Broncos, now a wide receiver. Of course, because of the vid a couple of years ago, had to play quarterback, and it went about as good as what Josh Johnson looked like yesterday, but it wasn't his fault. And he had no time to prep, too, to be honest. Stidham was actually ranked ahead of Kyler Murray. Yeah, that's interesting. In that 2015 rankings. Never even heard of Brandon Wimbush, but he went to Notre Dame. Jawan Jennings was 5th, ranked as a dual threat quarterback, ahead of Sam Darnold and Joe Burrow, one who became the number 1 overall pick in the draft and one who was drafted 3 overall. Oh, and Lamar Jackson was 9th. Okay. So, Kelly Bryant, I've heard of him. He was at Clemson. And once we go down, now we're really losing the plot here. People I've never even heard of. Random. Oh, that's a name. Tucker Israel. Bryce Perkins sounds familiar. I don't know why. Elijah Robinson. Okay. So we'll probably get into we'll make a preview or do a preview of the game next week, honestly, because it'll be a little more fresh in that sense, in terms of some of the news and things that is coming out regarding the game. Also, I think we'll go to some of the coaching news. Kellen Moore was allowed to go and talk to the LA Chargers for their offensive coordinator position, and he took the job. He will be the offensive coordinator now of the Los Angeles Chargers. Yesterday, we heard that a longtime defensive coordinator guru, Vic Fangio, is signed on to become the defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins and becomes the highest paid coordinator in the league. Yeah, so I was one. Yeah, I had to. I'm going to read that in a minute, but Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator, and then Justin Herbert, shoulder surgery on his left shoulder, so non-throwing. Other things here. I was trying to go and they had a coach update on the page there. There you go. Cardinals interviewed Bengals defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo and offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. They put a big scope, honestly. Their pass rush season went under, yeah. In 2000, yeah. So I mean, he was good. They called a great defense, honestly. Held Kansas City down pretty good. And then also Callahan did a great job. He's also interviewing for Indianapolis. Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. They've also interviewed Sean Payton. Broncos defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero, who's been getting a lot of looks. Brian Flores, who works for the Steelers now. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, and current defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, who also was a former head coach like Flores. And then they request an interview with D'Amico Ryans of the Niners, Dan Quinn of the Cowboys, who said he's going to stay, and Frank Reich, who ended up taking the Carolina Panthers job, interestingly, over Steve Wilkes, which basically speaks to the hiring practices in the NFL across not just head coaching jobs, but the coordinator jobs and general managers and team presidents and president of player personnel kind of roles. The Niners are actually well ahead in regards to the diversity aspect of it. Hence, you see all these people getting hired, while other teams languish behind and they don't really pay the price for it. But, it's the old boys club kind of garbage they have in that sense, in regards to the old white boys club, in regards to how they go and run these kind of things, and it's not a great look for the league in general, but that's what they want. And it's a shame, really. You're losing out on some really good new talent, some talented coaches and people that could really make a big difference. I mean, heck, Bengals gives their quarterbacks coach a contract extension. I'm assuming that means they're going to move him over. Their offensive coordinator moves. Indianapolis Colts was another one. Rich Bisaccia, they've talked to virtual round. So fifth candidate, Saturday is being interviewed for the job twice already, which is insane.
I thought the Colts hired. Oh, the Colts. I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the Panthers hiring Frank Reich. Yeah.
Frank Reich was their coach. Evero, Raheem Morris, former coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Wink Martindale. 3 are in the playoffs. I mean, Eric Bieniemy is going to be available now because of the week off. Shane Steichen of the Eagles is going to have time because of the week off, and Brian Callahan now because they got eliminated. So they also interviewed Bubba Ventrone, their special teams coordinator. The Lions coordinators Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Kafka, Quinn. Of course, Quinn stayed. Colts with D'Amico Ryans, who it sounds like will be the coach of the Houston Texans, bringing him back to the roster, to the organization that drafted him into the NFL. So no official news outside of the hire of Frank Reich. Broncos did actually interview Jim Harbaugh again, so that's interesting since it sounded like he was gonna go back to Michigan. He was committed to doing that instead of committing to or looking towards a pro job, but I guess that's not the case. We'll see what happens with that, though. We didn't do that, so that's whatever. We'll do it next week, and then Pro Bowl game, Super Bowl, so that's what we will do. Let's get into Rolex 24, man. You were there. What was it like? It looked like it was a sea of humanity in there. Kind of looked like a Formula One race in a sense in terms of the post-race, the amount of people that were there, and the amount of energy that seemed to be in this. Of course, the debut of the new LMDH cars, the AK, the GTP category, returning to IMSA for the first time in 30 years. With the representation from Acura, Cadillac, BMW, and Porsche, amongst other things. Of course, the GTD category, GT Daytona Pro and GTD, boasted a bunch of new cars this year, and some that have been around but are really good. What was it like there? Some of the things you experienced. Of course, got close to Elio, but you also got to talk to some other people.
Yeah, I did. I mean, besides Elio, which I was within feet of getting a picture with him, but also fist bumped with Jordan Taylor, in the garage area coming. I think he was done with his stint and he was going back to his hauler, bus, whatever, to go take a nap or something. And he was walking actually kind of more in the direction of the fan zone because there's the gate, where they have the fan zone and then the garage area where you go to walk into it, and he was walking towards the direction. I think he was getting ready to go through the fan zone and go back to the bus or whatever, but I fist bumped him, said what's good. He fist bumped me back, and he went about his business, and I think somebody else tried to get an autograph from him and autograph his hat or their hat, and he did that. But actually, I should have got a picture of him or with him, but I guess I wasn't thinking fast enough. And I knew he was pretty busy and everything, and just trying to get about where he was going to. So I didn't want to slow him down too much or anything. But I said hello. So basically, that's pretty cool. Of course, AKA Rodney Sandstorm, the guy who wears Jeff Gordon hats and the mustache and everything, and it's got the cool Instagrams
jacket and
everything.
The jorts.
Yep, and the jorts as well. Gotta rock those jorts. So, that's a pretty cool guy. Of course, works for Dirty Mo Media with Dale Jr. and making content over there. So, looking forward to see if he's got some more funny video content coming out later this year, in between all the racing that he's doing. But I mean, as far as the race itself, I mean, great experience, of course. I think this year was the most fans that they've had at the race, and I mean, it's probably right, because when I got there, normally the free parking that they have in Lot 3 at One Daytona across the street from the Speedway, they was already packed, already full, so I had to go just a little bit down, parked at the Volusia Mall, and there was free parking there, so got out, just had to walk a little bit further to get to the Speedway, but was able to walk all the way to the track and everything, and actually saw something a little bit different this time, because I've never seen the office, the track offices side where all the ticket windows are and everything, and I guess the main, where the tours are and the museum and everything, and I was able to walk by that and actually saw the Dale Earnhardt statue for the first time. So it was actually pretty nice, because I haven't been on that side of Daytona Speedway. It's always everything before that, but before the bridge. But saw that, and then saw all the handprint and footprints of all the Daytona 500 winning drivers, and of course saw the two Daytona 500 wins for Dale Jr. 2004 and 2014. So that was cool and everything. But that was really interesting. Of course, actually, one of my friends I work with here in Melbourne came with me to the race. It's like, hey, you're interested in coming? And we were able to work out something to go to the race, and came with me. And it was actually his first time ever being at any kind of race, and he said he liked it, liked all the the themes and everything, and all the sounds and the noises of all the race cars, and just like the entire atmosphere, and said it's just just like a theme park of race cars. And I said, yeah, it's exactly what Daytona is and everything. But that was fun and everything, and was able to get down to the track, and we were able to go down to the speedway for a bit before the race, and that's where I was able to look at all the cars and everything before the race, and of course saw Elio. And there was also another guy, I think I mentioned it earlier, he's in a Spider-Man suit, of course, because Elio is Spider-Man of motorsports, and of course he won the race and climbed up onto the fence and everything, and Spider-Man, that's what he does. So that was pretty nice. But and then at first, we went to the stands to go watch the race. and saw the perspective from that, and we were able to see the start from the stands. Last year when I went, I was in the fan zone up on top of the garages, so a little bit different perspective this time. You get to see a little bit of the whole track, the first couple of laps and the opening laps, seeing all the cars begin to get their pace and everything, and get set and get into the race. So that was a little bit different perspective this year. And then, of course, before going onto the track, you're able to autograph the or sign whatever with the marker onto the track, and of course, signed my autograph onto the track. And then, of course, had to put "It was always the Jags" on the track, commemorate the 2022 Jags season and everything, and just had to write that one on the Daytona International Speedway yellow line and everything, just for fun, whatever. But did that. We just walked around for a bit, throughout the grandstands, and was able to get a lot of different angles of pictures and everything. Brought my Nikon camera this time, so I was able to get some really high resolution shots, which I'll share with you once I get all the good pictures and bad pictures sorted out. So we'll get that situated there. But just a really good experience overall. And then, of course, we met up with one of our other friends there. She was there with her dad. We saw her and talked for a minute, and then went about our day, and we went down into the garage area and the infield after that, and saw all the campfires and everything out there, and all the RVs and stuff. And really, that's where most of the people are. I mean, there's a bunch of people in the stands, but I think the majority, and I mean, this probably speaks for most of sports car racing, and I think even extending out to open wheel and IndyCar racing, a lot of the fans are in the infield, camping out for the weekend, because it's a multi-day event, and you can go out there and camp and talk about or do whatever you want throughout the weekend. And I think that's where you get a lot of the interaction and everything between people, and that's where the party aspect of it comes into play. But we were there in the infield. I went to the midway and did a lot of stuff there. Went to the vendors and stuff. We went to pretty much all the vendors that were there. Chevy, Acura, Ford, Cadillac, Lexus, BMW, pretty much everything that all the major manufacturers that were there. And we saw pretty much all they had to offer. I was able to see the Integra Type S that's coming out later this year. Of course, it was pacing the field at the beginning of the race before the race started. It's not yet fully revealed yet. They still have the camouflage on it because I guess they haven't gotten the full design out yet, but they had the prototype there, so that was pretty cool to see. Never seen really a Honda or Acura with a tri-tip exhaust, which what the Integra Type S has this time in this model. So that's going to be interesting coming out, I think, later this year. So it should be fun, see what that's all about. And then they also had the regular Integra there, which people could go in and sit down in the car and try it out. So both me and my friend, we went and saw the inside of the car, and was able to kind of mess around with the controls, mess around the stick shift, 6-speed stick shift there, and able to get in the car and pretend like we were driving manual and everything. So that was pretty funny. But got a bunch of free shirts. Got Cadillac, Corvette Racing. Got the eBay Motors. There was a vendor there that had shirts from them, so we got that. They had the iRacing simulator there at the BMW vendor, but it was with iRacing, and it had the Fanatec wheel and pedal set. And so I was actually wanting to go there because they had the leaderboard up, and I think the best time with the BMW hybrid LMDH was minute 42, and I actually haven't raced it yet in iRacing, so I was kind of wanting to do that. And with the nice wheel pedal set up there that they had, I was really wanting to do that. But I'd asked the guy at the table, like, you guys still have spots open for the rest of the day? He said no, but we'll have some open tomorrow and everything. But I was only there for Saturday, so wasn't able to do that. But I have it at home, so I can just hop on any time. But it's always cool to see that stuff at the racetrack and everything. They had a similar setup over at Lexus, but it was with Gran Turismo, and I think they had a different wheel set there, so it was a little bit different, but that was interesting. And then, of course, over at Chevrolet, they had the Garage 56 prototype for for NASCAR and Le Mans. That was there. So I got to see that one up close and everything. Never seen a Gen 6 up close yet, or, really this is the Garage 56 car, and so I haven't seen that up close. And, you can see all the different modifications that they've made for that car just for Le Mans compared to, what they run in the normal Cup Series and everything. They've got the, I forget what you call it, but they call it, the fins that are on the front of the car on the fenders. I think they're like, I forgot what those are called, but that's one of the modifications to that car. They've got a little bit of a bigger lip on the front, on the front valence, the splitter and everything. The back, of course, has the famous big ass spoiler as known by Dale Jr. on there. So, was able to get a good look at that and see just how big ass spoiler it is, and it's pretty big. So, I can't agree, or Dale Jr.'s 100% right on that, as he always is usually. So, it fits the description there, but it's a interesting car, and we'll see how it performs in Le Mans later this year. We saw that there's another vendor that had it wasn't a sim racing thing, but it was actually like a drag racing simulator, I guess. So you were able to you hop into the car or to the seat, and then you have the controls of mimicking drag racing, and you're basically reacting to the light and when to release and go, and they time you and everything. And at first, trying it out, I was beating my friend, but then later on, the last couple of tries, my friend beat me by pretty big margin. I forgot the times where I think I had 0.1 or something, and my friend had 0.05 tenth of a second or hundredth of a second reaction time to the light when to go once you're reacting to when the light changes to yellow and you go on the off of the release and everything. So that was pretty interesting, but drag racing is not really my thing, I guess, but it was still pretty funny to do that and everything. But of course, just checked out all the other vendor shops and try to get more free stuff, which you're able to do that. And of course, the shirts, and also got a free water bottle and magazine, so that was pretty nice. Did that. We checked out the Lake Lloyd, got some pictures there on the Le Mans chicane, coming off turn 2 in NASCAR, going down the back stretch, seeing some of the cars go down there, and then went back into the fan zone for a bit, and then we went through the garage one time. There was no cars, and then so we took a break and sat down in front of the projector screen in the fan zone, and then we saw the cameras flash the Porsche in the garage for the Penske Porsche number 6. And so we were like, okay, let's go see. So we went and saw. They were trying to make as much repairs as they could to the car. And they were behind the wall, and took a couple pictures of that. And it's pretty interesting. Going back to what we were talking about in the last episode, I thought that Porsche would have a tougher time with this race just purely because they're a new team this year in IMSA competition. I mean, it's not their first rodeo, of course, in the Rolex 24, but as the partnership with Penske Racing, in this new class LMDH, and being in the Rolex 24 hours this year, I thought they'd have a tougher time, and I guess I was proven right by that with the 6 going behind the wall, and then later on the next day, on Sunday morning, the number 7 Porsche having engine troubles, with about 3 hours to go there. So I guess I was proven right, and it's another prediction that I've gotten right on this podcast, unfortunately. And my one friend that was at the track not with us, but was there in attendance as well. She told me she was she's Porsche person, and I was like, well, sorry. That's what I was thinking was going to happen, but it is what it is. But so that was kind of funny. But we saw that, and then we saw one of the Lamborghinis make repairs, and they were able to make it back out onto the racetrack. I think they had some engine problems or whatever, but they got the car into the garage and made repairs to the engine, and then they did some tests with the motor, and then they were able to get out and get back into the race. So that was pretty cool seeing stuff like that. And just in general, you can feel the atmosphere in the garages as they're trying to repair the cars. It's a 24-hour race. They're trying to get back into the event, try to get as many points as they can, or positions back as they can. So that was, you can feel the energy there and everything. And then later on we went back into the grandstands after that, and then we sat kind of in front of turn one of the road course, where you could see all the cars trying to break from 180, 175 all the way down to I think 90 or whatever in that first corner. And some of those guys, in just even like 6-7 hours in the race, they're already starting to lose performances in terms of braking. There were some cars that were really overdriving the corner. You could see them slide, smoke the tires just in the center of that corner, and trying to make the best of their time. But of course, they're either going too hard, or they're already starting to see issues with their performance of their car and everything. So that was pretty interesting to see the handling aspect of the cars, as they were just maybe a quarter of the way into the race. So that was a pretty interesting aspect there. And then after that, I think we left about probably 9:30 time frame. We headed out, left the speedway, and started to make our way back to down to Melbourne and everything. So stopped at Olive Garden and had pretty good service there. Of course, Olive Garden, unlimited breadsticks and salad and everything. So took advantage of that. So and had some pretty good meal there about 10 p.m. So and then drove home and everything. So yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot, but of course, the Rolex 24, great experience at that race as always. And in comparison to NASCAR at Daytona, of course, I think you really get a lot of value for how much you're paying for a ticket. I had the 2-day pass, which Saturday, Sunday, but it came with the garage infield pass as well, which is really why I wanted it, because I wasn't going to stay on Sunday. I mean, I should have stayed on Sunday, but it's easier just to make it back in one day and everything. And I think even for $100, you're able to get the value of the ticket, or even 100. I paid 70 because I bought it in November, but you're able to get the value of the ticket by just visiting the track before the race, going onto the track, being able to sit anywhere where you want to in the grandstands, and then also being able to go into the infield and go around wherever you want there, and being able to go to the garage area and see all the action there before and during the race. So I think there's a lot of value in that compared to NASCAR, where you're paying, I don't know how many dollars per ticket, where you might be sitting in the lower sections or up in the nosebleeds, where you get the higher view of the track and everything. But you're paying pretty high dollar for NASCAR, like for the Daytona 500, and then on top of that, can't even get to the grass or the track before the race. You have to pay an extra ticket for that. That usually runs $120 just to get to the fan zone and have the pre-race passes and everything. So from my mind, I think you get a lot of value for your dollar just by buying the Rolex tickets. But not saying it's not a bad idea to go to NASCAR, but just saying purely from a money standpoint, I think you get a lot of bang for your buck by going to the Rolex 24. So that's been my opinion for the last couple of years and still stands. And same idea in IndyCar with the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. They have kind of the same idea with the general admission pricing there, and you get a lot of value for your dollar there as well. So and I think really any place that has general admission and ability to visit anywhere, it's very valuable. The one thing that was different this year was for that pass, for the garage passes, you were actually only allowed to go in the garage area on that side of the track. Because last year I was able to go to the garage area and the pits, and well, not inside the pits, but the area behind the pits, and walk down there. But this year they were a little bit more strict, and they were like, you have to have a hard card to go on that side. So I wasn't able to walk down behind the pits like I was last year. So that was a little bit different, but it's okay. I guess I'll have to figure out a way to get a hard card next year or later on. So yeah, I mean, as always, it's a fun experience, and it's just a great time at the track, great atmosphere. It's a good opportunity for if you want to practice your racing photography, which that's what I was trying to do with my camera this year, with bringing the Nikon instead of trying to use the iPhone. A real actual professional camera, change a lens and get better zoom angles and all that stuff. that was kind of the goal there. It's an opportunity for that, and you have several aspects, points on the track where you could do photography, whether you're up in the stands or up down by the International Horseshoe in the infield, or off of turn 4 or off of turn 2 backstretch. A lot of great places to do photography there. So that was that part of the race and everything. That was my perspective, my friend's perspective and everything. And of course, I think try to go back in the future and maybe try to do some sort of camping thing or whatever, whether that's next year or later on or something like that. I think it's well worth it to do that as well. So yeah, I mean, that's my experience, and glad to have done it and everything. And hopefully there's more experience like that in the future. And as far as the race itself, I mean, it was a great race. Came down pretty close in most of the classes. Elio won, so now he's a 3-time Daytona Rolex 24 champion, in addition to being a 4X Indy 500 champion. So he's slowly collecting a legendary resume. And of course, there's also the aspect of him potentially competing in the Daytona 500, and he's not going to do it this year, but maybe might do it next year. So there's the opportunity to win the Daytona 500. So having those victories and possibly a Daytona 500, pretty legendary driver, and he can still go probably well into his 50s. I bet. I think it's like 47 now, and I mean, still looks as young as 25. He just has to apply the Just for Men, like you were telling me before the race. So it was a great event and great race. Of course, LMP2 finished pretty close. Came down to the last lap, last corner, kind of reminiscent of Harvick versus Mark Martin 07 Daytona 500. But just a great finish there. So great race. First big event for 2023 and kicks off the racing season officially in my mind.
Yeah, it definitely was a good race, and glad that you're able to enjoy all that stuff. I do agree that sports car racing and Indy cars and some of these other series are probably way more better value. Part of the reason why I want to get to the 6 hours at the Glen later this summer. So hopefully you can make that happen, or I can make that happen. Getting into the race itself, the Acura, the Meyer-Shank Racing Acura of Tom Blomqvist, Colin Braun, aforementioned Helio Castro-Neves, and Simon Pagenaud win the Rolex 24 in the case of Blomqvist, Castro-Neves, and Pagenaud. That's 2 years in a row. And when it comes to, I'm trying to see over there, won the 22, and then the latter Duopar last year. Third straight win in the race for Helio Castro-Neves, because he did win for the Konica Minolta Acura team for Wayne Taylor back 3 years ago. Or, 2 years ago. So now 2-1 now. So 3 consecutive wins, which is he tied the late Peter Gregg for most consecutive overall wins. And pretty interesting, since it was the 50th anniversary of Brumos's first win with Peter Gregg and Hurley Haywood, and Hurley Haywood was at the track this weekend. Doesn't look like he's aged in all these years, so it's one of the greatest sports car racers ever. 5-time winner of the Rolex, tied with Hi to My Family at Home. He's a 3-time winner at Le Mans, an absolute go to sports car racing. So that's an interesting deal there. They ended up winning by 4.19 seconds over fellow Acura, the Konica Minolta Acura, what do you call Wayne Taylor and Andretti now. Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, Louis Delatraz, and Brendan Hartley, the drivers there. And the 2 Ganassi Cadillacs ended up finishing 3rd and 4th, all on the lead lap. The 01, which will be the full season car with Sebastian Bourdais and Renger van der Zande, with Scott Dixon, the 3rd driver, which is something to say. That'll probably change in a couple of years when he decides to quit IndyCar, or whenever he decides to quit IndyCar. Alex Lynn and Richard Westbrook, who will be driving in the WEC together, they finished 4th in this race. The 5th place finisher was 12 laps behind. It was the last Cadillac, Pippo Durrani, Alexander Sims, and Jack Aiken in the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac. After that, basically, it was pretty rough for the other cars in the class. I had the one thing open where it was showing by class. I might have to actually go and look that up, but out of curiosity, we'll see. In terms of after that, there was a gap there. Philip Eng, Augusto Farfus, Marco Wittmann, and Colton Herta finished 6th overall in the BMW number 24 for Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan in their first race back in the prototype category. BMW's first race back in prototype category since I think the year 2000. So long time for them being away. In terms of the overall results, those are the top 6, and then the LMP2 battle came down to the line, was 16 thousandths of a second. James Allen driving the Proton number 55 wins over Ben Hanley, who was driving the CrowdStrike Racing APR 04 car. There was 4 cars that were on the same lap. In the number 88 AF Corsa car, finished 3rd in class, got on the podium. Guido Vandergarder, Josh Pearson, Job Van Oiterd, and Harrio in the TDS number 35 finished 4th. 2 laps behind them were the bus bros of Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, and then owner John Ferrano and their other his co-driver for the year, Kiffin Simpson. A lap behind them was the Rick Ware Racing car, which had finishing the race DeFrancesco, Austin Cindric, the defending Daytona 500 champion, Pietro Fittipaldi, and Eric Lux, who will be the full season drivers there. So LMP2 cars, they were in terms of from 7th to 13th overall, separated by 4 laps. So Ben Keating, or Nicolas Lapierre, and the PR1 Matheson in 52 had won this race last year, struggled, or were doing all right, but spun out late, and that cost them a chance at the victory. The first Penske Porsche finished 8 laps behind their next team there, or next drive, or next car, and in 14th overall. That's Matt Campbell, Felipe Nasr, and Michael Christensen were the drivers. And then the Duquesne, AWA Duquesne, number 17, dominated and won by like 30 laps or something in LMP3, proving once again why they, well, it said 12 laps, but I thought it was like 30-something laps or whatever. They were in a different time zone. I thought it was way more than that, but guess that wasn't the case. That race was done largely due to the attrition and all the issues that came up there. So unfortunate in terms of some of those other teams, the Sean Creek Porsche team and some of the other people that are involved in this race, to not be able to finish it off or put it away. That's got to be a bummer in that sense. And then you got, what is that? That's practice. Talking about practice. I should just go back to I'll go to Racer again, because there was a class breakdown, class by class breakdown, which was what I had before I went on IMSA.com. IMSA's website is terrible. So yeah. Then the only car that didn't finish outside of the GTP, or in the GTP class, was the other Porsche, Matthew Jaminet, Nick Tandy, and Dane Cameron, who will be running in the World Endurance Championship Penske Porsche. The one BMW, as I mentioned, finished 6th overall. The other BMW finished last in class. Definitely struggled over the weekend, but it looked like they made some progress, even though they had a lot of problems. The Porsches also showed a lot of problems. Acuras had not run a lot, but they were able to make it work. And so were the Ganassi Cadillacs, to be honest. And in terms of the LMP2 class, you had 7 cars that were within 4 laps by the end of the race. But the lead car in that finished 761 laps, which relative to the GTP cars, they were giving up, based on the overall, 22 laps to the overall winner. So essentially a lap an hour So the thought of LMP2 possibly being able to get around the GTP cars, unless like catastrophe happened, it might have been similar to what happened the years that GT cars won the Rolex over the past, 30 years or so. So didn't happen though, which is nice to see. But the Porsche and BMW teams definitely have stuff to work on. Mentioned LMP3. They won the AWA team, won by 12 laps over the Shawn Creek Ligier team. Joao Barbosa amongst that driving contingent. The Performance Tech 38 rounded out the podium. The Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, Van Berlo, Riley, Ligier blew up catastrophically early in the race. So a pretty good contender was knocked out early in that sense. The Jared Andretti, Gabby Chavez, Rasmus Linde Andretti Autosport car also had issues. So they were knocked out early in the race, or halfway through the race. JDC Miller teams had struggles, finished 22 laps off of the winner and 10 laps off of second place. So interesting there. The GTD Pro and GTD races were definitely spicy. The two retirements for Bill Auberlin and Bruno Spengler and John Edwards, the Turner Motorsports BMW M4, and then the Risi Competizione Ferrari 296, Per Guidi, Collado, Serra, Rigon, all Ferrari factory drivers. They got eliminated halfway. The Auberlin Turner car fell out with just over 3 hours to go in the race. The Cooper McNeil, in what supposedly is his last race of his career, has to handle business stuff with the WeatherTech company. Of course, it's the family company. I think he's getting married to Katie Kearney, the Instagram golf girl. So credit to him. Gets that punani. Daniel Juncadella, Jules Gugnon, and Mauro Engel, all Mercedes factory drivers, came through there to win by just under 4 seconds over Antonio Garcia, Jordan Taylor, Tommy Milner, the Corvette Racing number 3. The third place car also on the lead lap, Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnicoat, Mike Conway, Vassar Sullivan, Lexus. 1 lap behind was the Roman Grosjean, Jordan Pepper, Andrea Calderari, Mirko Bortolotti, Iron Lynx Lamborghini, who struggled for pace early in the weekend, but obviously by the end of the weekend they were able to get it. Klaus Bachler, Patrick Pilet, and Lawrence Vantor and the Pfaff Motorsports Plaid Porsche were able to finish also 1 lap down, 5th in class. That's good for the point situation. Not really sure who's going to run on a regular basis in the WeatherTech car. We know Garcia and Taylor will be here. Rodney Sandstorm, of course, that Josh saw and was able to kind of have an interaction with. They're going to have something for the season. The Vassar Sullivan Lexus is someone you to look at because they've had issues in the Enduros now. They might have figured that out. I think the Iron Lynx car was only for the Rolex. So essentially Pfaff probably right now would be a net third. The Ross Gunn, Riberas, Petard, Harder Racing, Aston Martin lost some ground there, and the Turner Motorsport team too. The GTD category, the last one, Roman DeAngelis, Marco Sorensen, Ian James, Darren Turner, the Harder Racing 27 gets the victory over the Magnus Racing Aston Martin, John Potter, Andy Lally, Spencer Pompelli, and Nicky Thiem. Uribe, Shandorf, Milroy, Kirchhofer, Inception Racing, McLaren rounds out the podium. Sexy Sheena Monk, Catherine Legg sporting some weird glasses these days. Mario Farnbacher and Mark Miller, the Gradient Racing, what is their sponsor? The Free Cash Now, whatever the hell. JG Wentworth Acura NSX was the last car on the lead lap. Aaron Telitz, Frankie Montecalvo, Kyle Kirkwood, Parker Thompson, the Vassar Sullivan Lexus in the AM category finished 5th. Wayne Taylor Racing had another car. Andretti Autosport was connected when he got 2 cars. Wayne Taylor Racing has 2 cars. They have a Acura NSX that runs only the Enduros. Marcelli, Ryan Briscoe, Ashton Harrison, Formal finished 6th. They were 2 laps back. And there's some of these other ones. The Paul Miller Racing BMW was 3 laps down. Porsches in general struggled this weekend. Might have been convenient, but we'll see. The Habel Stoltz Sun Energy car had issues and fell out around halfway. I'm trying to look at some of these other. The Iron Dames team had a lot of issues throughout the whole race, but the ladies were able to finish. Trying to see who else was there. The Korthoff car problems. They were 20 laps off the lead overall, and they were a lap behind the car that was in front of them. Windward Racing, after having to rebuild their car because one of their drivers got hurt in the roar, had to rebuild a car, were in a position, possibly contend for the victory, and then had issues again and fell out of the race. So disappointment there. So Rolex is done. It'll be over 40 days, 43 days, it says on the website, till the 12 hours of Sebring. So another, 6 weeks till the 12 hours, which is what it's been. They used to have other races in between back in the old IMSA days, but we will see what happens with that. Were there any thoughts on any of the classes in particular? The LMP2 battle, of course, was cool at the end. The GT battles were also competitive, but I think that last restart played a role in how those races played out. And even in the GTP category, to be fair, I think the last restart kind of played a role in what happened there, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like the last, I want to say 3 hours of the race, there started to have a lot of cautions pick up towards the end. There was, of course, the some of the incidents that happened, cars getting stuck in the International Horseshoe and other places, and in general, caused a lot of rebunching up of the field, and I think that's what kind of contributed to that great finish that we saw in LMP2. But really, in general, just up front at the GTP class, the 60 had Acura. They had the best car overall throughout the race, and they just had a lot of pace on restarts, and they were able to get away from the rest of their competition fairly quickly, and they didn't really have too much of a challenge on those late restarts. I think the 10 Acura could have caught up to their brother in the GTP category, but they just didn't really have the long run pace compared to the 60, and just a still overall win for both, a good win for the manufacturer, but they just didn't have the speed that the 60 did. And and then the other classes like GTD and GTD Pro, or GTD-AM, GTD Pro, it's interesting how the AM class finished their car, the number 27, Spirit of Racing. They actually finished better than all the GTD Pro cars, so that was pretty interesting that the amateur class actually finished higher than all the pros. But I think that just shows the attrition that takes place in the Rolex 24, and sometimes it just happens like that, I guess. But I thought in the middle of the race, there was a good battle, like, late in the night. After I got home, I turned it on Peacock, and, the 79 GTD and the, I think, the 23 Aston Martin, they were having a pretty good battle for a bit, about, 2-3 in the morning. They were pretty close with each other. And I think, just overnight, the 23, I guess he fell behind and fell a couple laps down to the 79. So that was pretty interesting. Late in the race, I think the 14 Vassar Sullivan, they had some good battles, and there was a couple of times where he went below the yellow line to, I think, pass the Corvette, the number 3 Corvette towards the end, and it's so different how you're able to do that in sports car racing, versus in NASCAR that's obviously illegal, out of bounds, whatever, or subjective depending on who you are. But it's interesting how that was able to play out. But then the three Corvette, they've been good at Daytona in the past, but this year they just didn't have quite the pace to hang with the top of their class. But it was just good battles throughout the field in general, and I'm glad we got to see all of that, in person, TV, otherwise. And then I think another part of it is the teammate battle between the 0-1 and the 0-2 in GTP, and of course at the end of the race, they had some pretty close battles, and then the coverage was highlighting how they got into it last year at Petit Le Mans, and just a bad finish there, but it renewed their rivalry here, racing each other close towards the end. But just shows the intensity, and for Chip Ganassi, he wants the best guy to be the winner, so shows their ability to fight, but they also are able to race with respect in that class. But yeah, I mean, just a great race overall, and I think GTP, we're seeing a lot of attrition already, of course, with BMW had issues, Porsche had issues, and I think even there's even times where even the 60, they had issues just spinning out, coming out of the infield there. So just a great race overall, and looking forward to the rest of the year, and all the other series, and even in sports car racing, and seeing how everything plays out. So I'm glad to have attended again, and glad to have witnessed it and all that stuff.
Absolutely. It was a great debut of all these new cars, and being able to get the season kind of rolling in that sense. Get Daytona Speed Weeks rolling too, which of course we're going to get there for NASCAR in 3 weeks time, actually. So it'll be great to see. We'll get into the NASCAR news of the recent week here. There's sponsorship news for Roush, Fenway, Keselowski, Trackhouse, Legacy Motor Club. The one piece of news I saw, or two pieces of news I saw, were, keep on counting them. But Toyota supposedly is looking to add teams, which is the first time we've ever really heard that in a while, or in general, which I think in the end NASCAR as it stands right now would like to have, in regards to the chartered teams, each manufacturer have 12 cars, I think in a perfect world, and have it split evenly across the board. But Toyota right now is only at 6. Chevy generally has a majority of the teams. Ford has 2 major teams in Penske and Stewart-Haas, and then some lesser teams that are out there. I mean, Penske's got 4 cars. Stewart with the what do you call, Wood Brothers, you have 4 Stewart-Haas cars. Then you have the Roush RFK, that's 2 with Front Row Motorsports, that's 2. So that's 12. I don't think there's anything past that. For front, I said front row, right? Or RFK and front row. So in terms of, there's talk about Amazon with Amazon Prime joining a possible new TV rights package based on news that's come out through Adam Stern. It looks like NBC and Flo are going to stay involved with this next contract. And then there's another piece. I mean, he also put out that they want the owners and teams want a bigger piece of the pie and get more money, because obviously the NASCAR is kind of cooking their books and not trying to pay the owners and the teams what they deserve. You'll see what happens with that. I think Stern did right about that, Adam Stern.
Yeah, he wrote about that. I saw that tweet.
Yeah. So those are things to catch. Another big piece was the Garage 56, which Josh mentioned. I think I was going to write it to you, but you're talking about the dive planes.
Yeah, the dive planes.
On the front. I was just trying to, I forgot what they were too. So while you were going through that, I was somehow or another able to find an article from back a few months ago when they started testing the car. speaking of that, the guy who's been the lead test driver is Mike Rockenfeller, a former winner of Le Mans and other major sports car races. He will be the lead guy on the Garage 56 entry, along with one Jim Johnson, co-owner of Legacy Motor Club, and returning to Cup racing after going and running IndyCar for a year and change post NASCAR retirement. And then Jenson Button, the 2009 Formula One world champion, spent a lot of time recently running GT, running, I think, World Challenge type racing in Europe, and going and spending time, like, a classic car driving. But then also he works for the Sky F1 team on TV. So it'll be cool, interesting combination there. And they're going to start ramping up testing, trying to get all the kinks and problems that they may think they could have out of the way. Chad Knaus is running it, so his attention to detail speaks to them being able to do all right. I mean, albeit it'll be an unclassified car, but it sounds like what Knaus and company want is a car that could basically be at the back end of the GTE category, which isn't a bad thing. But I will see the big contrast between that car and a GTE, and then obviously when it comes to prototypes. There's Xfinity testing at Charlotte Motor Speedway to try and get rid of the skew with the rear end housings. There's driver news, and that Joe Graff Jr., for some effing reason, still has a career, and now he's driving for RSS Racing with their Stewart-Haas alliance. Rajah Caruth is going to run some races, like select races for Alpha Prime. A couple of other random things. You got Galding returning at first time in a few years to drive for SS Greenlight full time. Parker Chase, a Trans Am driver, will run select races. Sam Hunt, some other sponsors, a lot of drivers for Sam Hunt. You got Tyler Reddick will be another one running for them. There's unfortunate news that came out earlier today that NASCAR Truck Series driver and probably former West Series driver for the D4D team, Rev Racing, Max Gutierrez, was injured in a car accident on Sunday, and his brother Federico passed away. So our condolences to the Gutierrez family at this time. It's a tough thing for sure to lose a loved one, just in general. So going and thinking of them at this time. Speaking of loss, there's Reum Brothers Racing had fire at their team shop, and they had planned on moving over to Ford this year. So lost a lot of stuff, a lot of equipment, and I think the Truck Series loads into Daytona on probably the 13th or 14th. So they got 2 weeks to really get everything together and hopefully be able to compete. I think we mentioned that Clyde's going to be running the 35. Or no, he didn't. So he'll be running the second McAnally Chevy at Daytona because regular driver is not eligible due to not being 18. So that Jake Garcia will be there at Las Vegas. So they got that. Mason Massey announced joining Real Brothers, but we'll see how that's affected with the fire that they had there. Wallace Allen, one of the greatest names in the history of motorsports, keeps his ride at Nice. You have Hocevar with Worldwide WWEX coming back as a main or primary sponsor. So he'll be back for Nice Motorsports. Seeing things kind of fall into place there. And so we got through all that. Let's do you have any thoughts, Josh, on any of the news items that we went over there?
I mean, yeah, starting with the Amazon potential contract with NASCAR and everything. That's going to be an interesting deal. I think we've seen what they've been able to do with Thursday Night Football and how much money that they're putting into that. They're putting in billions of dollars into that deal. So if they put in billions of dollars into NASCAR, it could change the financial prospects of this the series of the trucks, Xfinity and Cup. Could improve things, and that's also why you're also seeing the owners and teams trying to negotiate for more money as part of the share. And of course, if Amazon's going to bring in a ton of money, then of course they're also going to want to have more share rather than keep the existing proportion here. But I mean, it should be interesting, with the TV deal, and if they're able to play it out or get anything there, and then also kind of with the way Amazon's been covering this series or with NFL and Thursday Night Football, could see different camera perspectives, maybe some of the AWS statistics with NASCAR, and could help bring in some of the coverage aspects that we've seen from Formula One implemented into NASCAR. So that might be interesting perspective there that we get from a potential Amazon contract with NASCAR. So should be interesting. And then I think the Xfinity series, they changed the SKU for the cars, and it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this because the last couple of years the Xfinity series certainly has had the best racing, I think, throughout all the tracks. Of course, short track racing, road courses, even the mile and a half to an extent have been pretty interesting, a lot better than in the Cup series. But now the SKU increases, or taking away the SKU, increasing dirty air. Jerry Clements had discussed that and said that there was a lot of increase in dirty air compared to the way that was before, and not really sure why they had to change the package. But it seems like teams have made a lot of gains in aero over the years in Xfinity, and I guess it was time, especially since they changed the body a couple years ago. But I think the teams they made so many gains that NASCAR has kind of had to wipe the slate clean basically, and go with a reset of the rules, I guess, or reset of the package in a way to get the teams on even footing again. So we'll see how some of these tracks, bigger tracks like Las Vegas, California Speedway, Charlotte, Texas, and Nashville Super Speedway, Phoenix, all these tracks that where we see dirty air take effect. I mean, Pocono, for crying out loud, forgot about that one. Homestead, is another one, although there's a lot of lane choice. But it's interesting how that's going to play out. In the past, NASCAR has modified the SKU of the cars in the Cup Series. It seems like it really put a lot of importance on how much of a input you had in the car as a driver, taking a different line versus taking another line. And it seems like when the SKU changes happened in the Cup Series, it really changed the handling of the cars and how they were affected in dirty air, and made it really important emphasis on what type of line you were taking into corners. So I wonder if the same thing will happen here with this rule change. But I mean, I think those two things that really stood out to me, throughout some of the news that you went over. But we'll see, with Amazon, I think that could be a good, I mean, they've never covered NASCAR, and I'm sure they'll use existing personalities, like, they'll probably steal somebody from Fox or NBC, or they'll get somebody new. Maybe that's where Alan Bestwick is going to go. He'll cover for Amazon. We'll see, but it should be interesting, and maybe they'll make the coverage similar to how Sky Sports does the international feed that we see on ESPN for Formula One. But we'll have to see what happens if they're able to get a contract next year.
Yeah, I think that'll be, I think it's what they said for starts in 2024, or it starts in 2026. I guess it's open in 2024, and it would start in 25 or 26 there. So we'll see what happens with that on the TV side. And I mentioned also with Jenson Button, he'll be running the Garage 56, but he also put a feeler out there that he might be interested in running road courses in NASCAR. So that would be something. That would be interesting to see another Formula One world champion come here. Jacques Villeneuve has tried his hand at NASCAR.
Kimi.
Of course, Kimi last year in the Garage Project 91 deal. I'm trying to think off the top. That goes back a long ways. Mario Andretti, of course, did it well prior to when he won his world championship. Jim Clark ran NASCAR back in the day. I mean, I don't think there's nobody
else
of major ilk that won championship, whatever, that had done it recently.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot of
Montoya.
IndyCar people. Yeah, but Montoya didn't. He won races, not a championship. But yeah,
right.
Montoya was the one that ran the longest. I think IndyCar guys were the ones like Hornish and Smoke, but they ran IRL. I mean, Dario flamed out in stock cars, and it worked out for him. I'm trying to think other IndyCar people, but there's not a whole lot there. We'll see if Jensen does. He spends a lot of time running GT3 type cars, so wouldn't be too big of a transition for him if he wanted to come over to this Gen 7 vehicle.
Yeah, real quick on that one, Jensen, he could link up with Tony Stewart and, get some soda cookies and all that stuff. So there's opportunity for that.
There's nothing wrong with soda cookies. I think Tony has had to stop eating as many since he's with Leah these days. But the minute I heard that, and I heard he was doing Garage 56, I think I posted it somewhere. He has to go. Jensen better start eating soda cookies for sure. That commercial was really funny. I honestly.
That was one of my favorite NASCAR commercials.
When they went and did the digital effects so that Tony could actually do the splits, which is hilarious in its own right. And then they top it off with the soda cookies. That was a great job by whoever did that commercial for Mobile One.
I actually tried soda cookies, and not that bad.
They aren't that bad. I've tried it too, so they are not bad. So we'll see what happens with that, if Jensen would cop to actually trying soda cookies or not. But we will see. He's got plenty of time between now and when he has to jump in the car for real at Le Mans. I will move to the roundup, short and sweet. This week, the Race of Champions, Norway, which is the father-son duo of Petter and Oliver Solberg, won the what do you call Nations Cup. I'm trying to see who else. They don't bother to put the standings there. In the Nations Cup, I'm saying Norway both contributed their quarterfinal in France, semifinals, Younger Solberg. Yeah, so they beat the Swedish combo of Ekstrom and Kristofferson in the semis. Then they raced the Team All-Stars, which was two drivers that didn't have a second driver, so they're combined with each other. Felipe Drogovic, the defending Formula 2 world champion, and Thierry Neuville, longtime World Rally Championship competitor. They knocked off Team Germany in the semifinals. Interesting. So those were the top two. Then you had Germany and Sweden, which makes sense in terms of the day itself, or the next day. Trying to go through, see E-Rock, mentioned we're getting past Finland team. They don't bother to put any real detail in that. The Americans obviously didn't do much anything. In the actual Race of Champions for individual drivers, Matthias Ekstrom becomes a 4-time winner of this event. A former 2-time DTM champion. He's run in many different categories, runs Road Rallycross. He was emotional yesterday because he ended up racing Mick Schumacher in the final. Matthias Ekstrom had beaten Mick's father, Michael, twice. And so that's a big deal for Matthias Ekstrom there. In terms of the semifinals, he beat Thierry Neuville. But also about the 26 World Rallycross champion, the 2016 World Rallycross champion. That's Ekstrom also won that. Yep. And then the other semifinal was all Germany. Mick Schumacher against his mentor, the now retired 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel. So that was, Neuville gets eliminated Oliver Solberg. Sebastian Loeb lost to Neuville as well. So that's quite a job by Thierry Neuville to get all the way over there, beating Loeb, and then what is it? Oliver Solberg beat his dad in the first round there too. So interesting. And then Neuville beat Oliver, then ended up losing to the eventual champion. Travis Pastrana got knocked out in the first round by Ekstrom, and Johan Kristoffersson, the teammate of Matthias Ekstrom, in the day before in quarterfinals. So he had a tough road for sure. The other piece is the Saudi E-Prix, which was last weekend. They ran 2 races there. The pole winner was McLaren's Jake Hughes. Mitch Evans was second. Rene Rast for McLaren. Buemi for Envision. Pascal Wehrlein for Porsche, the top 5. Jake Dennis, the winner at Mexico City, started 6th. Eduardo Mortara, 7th for Maserati. Stoffel Van Dorn, the defending world champion, 8th. Sam Bird, 9th, and Maximilian Gunther, 10th for Maserati. That was for the race 2. I apologize. Race 1, Buemi qualified on pole over Jake Hughes, Sam Bird, Dan Ticktum, and Rene Rast. So McLaren's were pacey for sure in qualifying trim. Mitch Evans, the Mahindra duo of Luca De Grassi and Oliver Rowland, Pascal Wehrlein, Nick Cassidy were the top 10 for the grid. And then in the race 1, the results saw Pascal Wehrlein win for Porsche over Dennis, and Bird rounds out the podium. So that's and then Sebastian Buemi 4th, Rene Rast 5th, Cassidy, John-Eric Verne, Jake Hughes, Andre Lauderer, Mitch Evans round out the top 10. Stoffel Van Dorn just outside of the top 10 there. In race 2, going into the race, the Wehrlein gets that win over Dennis and Rast. Bird, Hughes, Buemi, Evans, Sasha Fenestraz, Eduardo Mortara, and Dan Ticktum. Van Dorn again finished 11th in that race. So heading to, in a couple of weeks' time, to Hyderabad for India's first Formula E race. Pascal Wehrlein, on the strength of 2 victories and a second, holds a 6-point lead after sweeping both races there over Jake Dennis. And then there's a huge gap to Sebastian Buemi, who is 37 points behind and third, to the leader, that is, and 31 points, or 31 points, 31 points behind Jake Dennis. Best finish of 4th for Buemi. Sam Bird didn't score points in Mexico City, finished 3rd and 4th in Saudi. Jake Hughes has 2 5ths and an 8th so far. Trying to go through here, somebody else who actually, there's the 3 drivers that have won so far this year there. I'm trying to see who else. 16 drivers have scored points, at least a point so far this year. Gunther, Nato, Roland, Muller, Sete Kamara, and Kevin Van der Linde have not scored points, so it's something to look at for future. And we'll get into that next week in our preview that for episode 155 of the GSP and also the roundup. Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum will have, it's a chartered field, so all the chartered cars show up. 36 cars, 27 will make the main event. So there's the official, or the last, this entry list is from my birthday on the 26th. I think there might be a couple of adjustments to what we see because they don't have sponsors listed for Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Yaley, Reddick. I think Reddick is going to do Money Lion, though, because there's a commercial with him and Bubba talking about that. And then Cody Ware So those are the guys. The 15 car last year with Ryan Preece at the wheel made the main event and had a decent starting spot. So that's something. I'm trying to remember I know Joey Logano won the race last year. I watched it. They'll be qualifying all the positions on Saturday the 4th. Then there will be everything else will take place on February 5th. 4 heat races will determine the first part of the field. Top 4 positions in qualifying will take the respective poles in those races. Then after that, there will be 2 LCQs where 3 drivers make it out of there. Heat races are 25, LCQs 50, and then the Clash itself, 150 laps with 27 drivers starting. I'm trying to see what else is here. So I went through the list of drivers. I guess, Josh, you can go first in regards to your thoughts, or maybe do you want to wait? I'll let you wait with the algorithm, and you can give your picks and all that in a minute. I'll let you do that. I'll give this in terms of my pick for the race on Sunday. I'll go with Ross Chastain to win the Clash. My dark horse pick would be. I think my dark horse pick would be. There's some guys that actually ran really well and then got sent back. I'm trying to remember how Phoenix went last year. Phoenix and Martinsville. I'm trying to go and compartmentalize those and see which things worked. So they don't even have the links they don't have the links conveniently for those races. They got rid of all the links for all their races up to the Opens this may be from this year. Okay, maybe that's why. That would help. So Phoenix, it was earlier in the year. Then talk about Richmond, Martinsville's Will Byron. Trying to see where else that would probably be a good basis for that. So we bring that up too. I did pick Ross Chastain, though. I'm going to stick with that one. Kind of feel like based on the way that everyone was talking about him or treating him after some of the races this past year, he's out to prove something. Even though he finished second in points last year, I think he definitely wants more. So it'll be a good start to the season. And of course, Joey Logano won the race, and in November he also ended up going and winning at Phoenix. So get through all that. I'm trying to see who finished. Logano, Blaney, Chastain, Briscoe finished fourth that race. That's nice. William Byron or Kevin Harvick fifth. I don't know if you can really call Kevin Harvick a wild card. I think it's really stretching it, but
that's a stretch.
So I'll leave that. Yeah, it's a big stretch because it's his last race anyway, or last. You know what? Now I can go with that one though. I'll go with Brad Keselowski. It is a wild card because for 2 reasons. One, they were god awful last year for a good part of the year. 2, they were one of the cars that were eliminated from the main event in last year's running of this race, along with Christopher Buescher. So both RFK cars had to sit there. They were out of the main event. So Brad Keselowski would be my wild card pick for the Clash. I'm not sure if you have any other thoughts, but just let us know what you're thinking and then what your picks would be, Josh, for the Clash.
Well, I think, in general, it's been a year now since this car's come out. The Clash last year, of course, it's a pretty interesting race. But then at the end, 2 of the best drivers in the series, ended up being the series champion, Joey Logano, coming out and winning the race. But we saw a lot of some of the issues that we've seen throughout the beginning of the 2022 season came out in this race. We had a lot of crashes, a lot of short track, hard, tough racing. But from the setup side, I'm wondering how this is going to come out based on how the teams have had a year of notes. I mean, they've only had one race at this track, but they've had 36 other races to. Well, not all 36 races, but certainly many races, so that to get perspective off of and know what worked, know what doesn't work, things that they can try out in this event, of course, doesn't count for anything that they could gain for later in the year. And it's going to be interesting, I think, just from that perspective. And I think that the best teams are going to come out and be competitive in this race, the best drivers. And it's going to be interesting to see how some the new drivers and new teams come out and play in here in this race. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to say what I'm thinking first, but I'm very curious to see how Kyle Busch comes out and performs in RCR equipment for the first time ever. I mean, it's a short track, so it should be interesting. Of course, Austin Dillon finished third in this race last year. Tyler Reddick was up there as well and led a ton of laps, second most to Kyle Busch. So there's pretty good baseline already for Kyle Busch just in RCR equipment for this race, and he himself finished second in this race last year. So it's going to be if he's able to win, that's going to be a pretty good start to the year for the new era for Kyle Busch and the number 8 Chevy for Richard Childress Racing. But that's kind of what some of my thoughts on this race are, really. But for the picks, you talked about the algorithm, and I got to thinking while we've been talking throughout the show and how we're going to do it for this year. We're still going to do the old way we've been doing it, with the Excel sheet and picking a number out of a hat, basically, with the Excel sheet and everything. But with all the rage with AI recently, the last couple of weeks, month, and everything, ChatGPT is kind of taking over the world and everything, with people trying to use it for different things. So I thought, maybe let's try to implement a little bit of ChatGPT here on this show. And so I asked, I mean, you have to be kind of general with these questions here, and ask what it can do and everything. And I was trying to ask, like, what who is the best in NASCAR, and it said for short track racing, some of the best drivers are Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, and Martin Truex Jr. And so I went and asked, okay, from those drivers on short tracks, can you provide a statistical comparison between Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, and Denny Hamlin at tracks 0.5 miles or less in length, because that's about the closest we can get to the Clash of Coliseum's track length, which I think is about a quarter mile in length. So from that, what I'm able to get at is, it said it can provide a general comparison of the performance of these drivers at short, half mile tracks or less in length based on their Cup Series statistics. And it says, of course, however, it's important to note these statistics may not be fully representative of their overall performance at tracks of this length and can vary from race to race. Additionally, this comparison does not take into account other factors that may impact a driver's performance, such as change in teams like Kyle Busch, crew chief, car setup, among other things. And so it says Kyle Busch has a NASCAR Cup Series average finish of 12.0 at tracks half mile or less in length. Joey Logano has an average finish of 11.5. Martin Truex has an average finish of 12.7. Keselowski average finish of 12 or 13.2. Denny Hamlin average finish of 12.3. And so using the algorithm, ChatGPT, we can infer that Joey Logano has the best chance of winning this race at the Clash. Of course, won the race last year, so I will go with Joey Logano with the help of ChatGPT determining all this stuff. Joey Logano winning the Clash, going back-to-back and starting off 2023 just like he ended 2022 and began it. So there you go for that. As far as wild cards in this race, I mean, there's a lot you can go with, but I'm gonna go one. Let's go with Eric Jones as a wild card, and I guess as a maybe another guy as a wild card. Throw in Bubble Wallace. Why not? He's had a lot of improvement over 22. So let's see what he can do first event of 23. So those are my two wild cards, along with Joe Logano winning the race.
First race as a married man to Amanda. So congrats to them, of course. So we'll see what happens there. He had like mid-range pace. Last year, one of his best tracks is Martinsville. Another year with Booty Barker and then Denny Hamlin's help. I think that'll be something. And the last thing we have to do before we move into your sim segment, Josh, is who's going to end up missing the show? Because I think it did play a part. There is something to what happened for the RFK team. They thought that they were all right, but they really weren't. In the end, they recovered and won both duels. A couple, 2-3 weeks later at Daytona, had good pace in the 500, but then also struggled for a good part of the season. You look at this field, 9 cars out of the 36 aren't going to make it. Ty Dillon did have a good run in this race last year. It'll be his first race for Fire. You can go chalk. I feel like going chalk isn't probably a bad idea. I think the Ware cars are going to get eliminated. The Spire cars. So that's 4. BJ McLeod, definitely 5. And I say definitely, then he'll make it. But after that, after you eliminate the real back marker efforts, there's going to be some tough choices to knock out. And I'm not sure if AJ drove. I don't think AJ was in this race, or maybe he was.
He was.
Okay, all right. I think I am, because I know Haley was pretty good.
Yeah, Haley was good last year and got taken out by Larson.
So I was wondering if he didn't have any experience. I know Austin Cindric was basically a dart without feathers in this race. Yep. Daytona 500 champion coming from the sports cars. I'm gonna go a little crazy. I'm gonna go and say Cindric misses the show. That would make it 6. So after that, I think Martin Truex misses the show. 7. I think there's a lot going on in his life. He's not going to be able to really put something together for this race, but I think by the time they go to Daytona, he'll be in a better mind space. I feel like Gagson's going to hit the wall. And I also think that Keebler's going to hit the wall. So based on that, I think that's 9, right? Or if I miscounted, it's 8, but I feel that's 9. What are your thoughts on, Josh, for who do you think will be eliminated, other than the general chalk picks?
Yeah, I agree with you on some of those chalk picks. I think overall those get eliminated and everything. But, once you thin out the easy picks, it starts to get interesting. And, I'm going to say that Alex Bowman gets eliminated. I think that's a pretty significant pick. I think he's kind of always been the Hendrick car that's struggled. New crew chief, of course, this year. Maybe they still aren't gelled quite together, or they get in an accident or something and get taken out of the race. So I think Alex Bowman gets eliminated here in this one. Maybe another guy that gets eliminated. If you want to go, with another elimination, I guess. It's pretty tough, but you already mentioned a big name in Cindric. I'm going to say Chris Bell. Why not? He's pretty good at short track racing also, but I could see him getting taken out in one of these qualifying races potentially, and seeing something like that. So I think Alex Bowman, I think he definitely struggle on handling, and then let's say Chris Bell, something happens to him, because I don't think that they would have something mechanically or have issues with handling. I think they made it to the final 4, so I don't think they'll have that problem. But I could see them last lap or something get taken out in an accident or whatever and miss the show that way.
You have 4 there, so you need to pick 2 more.
Oh,
you
2 more.
Bowman
2 more.
and Bell.
Okay, so I got Bowman, Bell. Okay, so I'll go with. I'm going to eliminate. Let's see, and I'll eliminate Todd Gilliland and Ricky Stenhouse. I think he gets eliminated too. So
Richard.
yeah, for the Richard aspect, that's right. So Todd Gilliland, Ricky Stenhouse, and Alex Bowman and Chris Bell.
Okay, we'll put those in there. Josh, Clash, elimination, outside, RWR, Spire, Live Fast. Now, it could also be determined by qualifying. Some of these teams, those crappier teams, like put a lap together. Some of them may just be what they are, to be determined. Bowman, Bell, Richard, and Gilliland. I think the upset pick theoretically would be Bell on your side because he finished in the final four.
Yeah.
And he's made his bones on short tracks. I think on my side, you can make an argument whether the Cindric pick or Truex pick is the wild card, but it could end up being a complete smorgasbord. Could be all different drivers. So something we will see next week. We'll go over that on the GSP. Let's move on, man, and get into the sim segment and what's going on in the world of iRacing and other gaming.
Yeah, of course. iRacing this week. I think they've got for the BMWs, the new BMW cars. They've got a challenge going on at Daytona this week, and I think it's like whoever can score the most points throughout the week racing at Daytona on the road course. I think there's like some sort of challenge or whatever, and you get a prize of some kind. I was trying to see if I could find that, like more details, but it seems pretty interesting here. News: BMW M Sim Cup this week at Daytona. The BMW Sim Cup pits iRacers from around the world against one another on legendary racetracks, competing behind the wheel of the BMW M Hybrid V8 GTP or the BMW M4 GT3. And this week's event sends racers to the Daytona road course and team up with another driver and a series of 120-minute multi-class racing series and see if you have what it takes to stand up at the top of the podium. Open to the entire community with prizes available to those who qualify the top split. Top split podium finishers in each class will earn $1,500 and $250, and the top 10 finishing teams will also earn series points. And then in the season, top 12 teams in the Sim Cup earn additional cash prizes up to $1,500 on the line for the champions. So that's pretty interesting. I have to see if I can compete in that throughout the year. Should be an interesting one. I don't know if I would make top split, but it's always fun to be in a series specifically designed to have monetary prizes. So that should be something to potentially look at here in the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, you have the normal iRacing series that we compete in every week. Of course, on the road side, starting off there, you got touring car turn racing challenge. Of course, that's the cars with such as the Hyundai Hyundai Velociter, and you have the Honda Civic Type R. They're racing at Brands Hatch Circuit Grand Prix layout this week. MX5 Cup is at VIR, Virginia International Raceway. Got Long Beach Street Circuit for the Indy Pro 2000s. Got, let's see here, Skip Barber's at the Chicago Street Circuit. So that's the Skip Barber cars on the Chicago Street Circuit that the Cup cars and the Xfinity cars are going to use later this year in the streets of Chicago, which iRacing designed a couple years ago. You've got the supercars racing at Mount Panorama, iRacing GR Cup, so that's the Toyota GR86 cars racing at Tsukuba Circuit, the 2000 full layout. So that's a pretty fun track. Raced that one on Gran Turismo, and that one's also on iRacing. That's always a fun track, and I've enjoyed racing the Toyota GR86 cars so far since it's come out. It's a pretty fun series. let's see here. Ferrari GT3 fixed series at Silverstone Grand Prix layout. That should be interesting on the road side. Let's see, LMP2 prototypes at VAR. Yeah, IndyCar, aka known as US Open Wheel B, Dallara IR18. That's going to be at the boot. 29 lap race, Watkins Glen. So that should be pretty interesting there. Let's see, I think that's pretty much all the series on the road side that could be of interest or potentially something that I'd like to do. Oval side here, apply that, change to the schedule. ARCA is at Thompson Motorsports Park. That's one of the tracks up north. That's a really nice little short track to run on. You've got the Truck Series, iRacing Class C Truck Series racing on the LA Coliseum track, so that's going to basically be the clash for the trucks. And then you've got the Atlanta Motor Speedway 2008 oval layout with the Xfinity Series. Then Cup, I think Cup is at LA Coliseum this week because obviously it makes sense for them to be on the LA Coliseum for this week since it's the clash. Then the Legend Series is at Milwaukee Mile this week, the 87 cars at Milwaukee Mile, so should be interesting there. Last week they were at Talladega. That was some good racing there. I think I did one race, but yeah, had some interesting racing there. Trying to go from the back to the front, not quite making it until the end. So a lot of good racing there. So yeah, as always, iRacing, of course, you have just highlighted a lot of different racing series, cars, tracks combinations that you can try out. So of course, always a fun time trying to race on iRacing and get in that racing experience, get in all that seat time. Yeah, it's been interesting so far this year on iRacing, and would like to continue to play on it. Going to be a little bit busy this week with work, but should be able to have some time on the weekend to be able to get back to it. So of course, if I stream, of course, you can follow at Twitch TV/usailor2 and go on there, follow my stuff and see, all the stuff I have and everything there. So, that's it for me for Sim segment. Say my stuff for, my handles and all that stuff and close the show. Shielu Phil. As always, follow Twitch TV, usailor2, all my stuff on there for racing, sim racing, and any other gaming stuff that I got. Go on there, watch my streams or archives or clips that I put on there, and I'll let you know when I go live. Which, of course, probably tweet out the links on Twitter. Of course, follow Twitter JP Huffine. See all my stuff, all my takes on football. Closing out the year for the Super Bowl, of course, and beginning the year in racing now. So page turn right into racing after football. So. It'll be an interesting year of racing, and certainly I have all the takes there that I don't have on here, or use those takes and then flow them into what I say on here, which you'll see on my handle at JP Huffine. And I'll put my Instagram out there too, as I'll probably put my pictures or some of the pictures from Rolex 24 there, which you'll probably see at JP Huffine. Go on there and see all my, if I do post Rolex pictures, that's where those will be at, and maybe on Facebook too, possibly, I don't know yet, but I might do that there. But follow them there, all at JP Huffine, and of course Scripture Podcast YouTube, which will have this on there later in the week, probably then a week. Have this video on there, and you can watch all our shows, everything dating back to March 2022, and see all our episodes since then. Of course, follow that, subscribe to our YouTube page, subscribe to all the pages we have here for this show, and like our videos, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to interact with the video and all the other stuff. So yeah, that's it for me this week. Great racing at the Rolex 24. Glad to be back there again this year. Glad the Acuras won. Of course, own Acura TL 2004, so my make, my car won. Glad to see that. So, of course, glad to be on there with you, Phil, another week, and, glad to be back and have another year of racing to talk about with you here.
Absolutely, man. We went through it, and we went through a lot with the Rolex. We also got into NASCAR, for the first time this season, and we'll have more to come because that'll be going on basically from February to November. Thanks as always for everything you do, brother, and for always taking care of your end of the deal and taking care of the video side with the Gripster Podcast YouTube page. For me, you can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can find me at Gripster. You can find me at Gripster Pod on Twitter. We're on basically anywhere you can hear podcasts. You can also find it at philipgmatthew.com or podbean.com to find the GSP. We will be back next week for episode 155 to review the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. We will do a preview and make some picks, or maybe not make picks, but make a preview of both of the teams in the Super Bowl. Maybe go over the Pro Bowl games. We'll get into the news in motorsports the whole week, amongst all the major series that we kind of get into in general. There'll be a couple of car reveals before the next episode, so we'll get into that. Roundup will discuss the Indian E-Prix and Rally Sweden. Oh, that's what you get to look forward to next week. We will be back for episode 155. Thank you for supporting us here on the Gripster Podcast. For Josh, I'm Phil. Take care of yourself and take care of those around you. Be nice to people. It doesn't take much to be nice, so let's go and try to do that for each other in this time. Take care, God bless, and goodbye.